there comes a moment when silence itself begins to speak. Not in noise, not in thunder, but in a steady whisper that cuts deeper than any sound. Today, I want to share a message for the chosen ones, those who feel the weight of purpose pressing against their chest, those who know they cannot live asleep any longer. The path of mastery is not a distant dream. It is a living reality shaped by discipline, stillness, and presence. The Shaolin tradition was never about fists and fighting. It was about learning to stand unmoved in the middle of storms, to see clearly when others are lost in confusion. Few know this truth. The monks trained in silence more than in combat. They believed that without inner stillness, no outer skill had value. That is the kind of strength the world is calling for now. In this video, you will hear principles that fuse ancient Shaolin wisdom with the urgency of a prophetic call. Lessons about breath as spiritual armor. About the inner mountain where true messages are received. About discipline that doesn't crush you but frees you. These are not just teachings for monks hidden in temples. They are steps for anyone ready to rise, to listen, and to act with clarity. Stay with me until the end, because each truth builds upon the last. By the time we finish, you will not only understand the message, you will feel it echoing in your own silence. This is Shaolin Soulfire. I welcome you to walk this path with us. If you wish to grow in discipline, presence, and mastery, subscribe now and let us continue together. The true battle has never been between two fighters. It has always been within the heart of one. Shaolin was never created as a stage for combat. It was born as a discipline to bring harmony to a restless mind, an undisciplined body, and a spirit pulled in many directions. When people look at the monks, they see strength, precision, perhaps even hardness. But what lies beneath is softness, endless hours of stillness, breath taken with care, thoughts slowed until they no longer control you, but pass like clouds drifting across the sky. The body is trained, yes, but the body is only the doorway. What matters is how it shapes the mind, and how the mind releases the spirit. There is an old saying in the monastery, before you learn to strike, you must learn to bow. Before you learn to move, you must learn to be still. This rhythm of restraint before action is what sharpens presence. A monk does not train for violence. He trains so that violence loses its grip on him. The balance of mind, body, and spirit is not a theory. It is tested every single day. Rising at dawn to meditate, to breathe, to recite words that cleanse the heart. Hours spent in movement, but more hours spent in silence. The training is not to create a warrior that conquers others. It is to create a human being who no longer needs to conquer himself again and again. This is why Shaolin is not a performance. It is a way of life, a way of carrying stillness inside you even while you walk through noise, a way of holding clarity while the world tries to distract you, a way of being when doing is not enough. The mind is like a river. Most people are swept away by its current, never noticing where the water is carrying them. They call it life. But in truth, it is drifting without direction. Mindfulness is the moment you step out of the river and stand on the bank. You begin to see the flow instead of being dragged by it. It is not simply about sitting with eyes closed, counting breaths. That is only the surface. True mindfulness is waking up in the middle of your own thought, noticing the rise of anger before it burns, hearing the whisper of fear before it rules you. It is the discipline of pausing between the impulse and the action. In Shaolin practice, a stance is not just a posture, it is a preparation. Before the strike, there is stillness. Before the step, there is balance. This same principle applies to life. To pause before speaking words that cannot be taken back. To breathe before making choices that shape destiny. That brief space becomes a shield, an armor, protecting you from the chaos of your own untamed mind. Ancient masters taught that wisdom does not enter a noisy heart. They trained their students to sit in silence, not as a ritual, but as a way to make room for guidance beyond their own thoughts. When the mind softens, when the breath steadies, something greater can be heard. Call it intuition, call it spirit, call it the divine. It cannot be forced, but it can be welcomed. Mindfulness is this welcoming. It is the art of remembering to be awake before you act. Like the stance that anchors a fighter, awareness anchors the soul. From that ground, every movement becomes precise. Every choice carries the weight of presence. Patience is not waiting idly. It is strength held in silence. In Shaolin training, a student may stand in one posture for hours, muscles trembling, sweat falling, yet no movement is allowed. The lesson is not about endurance alone. It is about learning to stay steady while discomfort presses in. This practice prepares the heart for something greater, clarity when pressure rises. Life often delivers its most important messages in quiet tones. They are not shouted, they are whispered. To hear them, you must first become still enough within yourself to recognize them. The Lord's guidance does not compete with the noise of impatience. It waits for the one who listens. When you react too quickly, you are still ruled by impulse. Words are spoken without thought, choices made without vision. It is like swinging a sword blindly in the dark. You may strike, but you will not strike true. Response, however, is different. Response comes from the calm center, from the pause where you gather yourself before moving. In that pause, a door opens, and through it, wisdom enters. The ancients understood this well. A sage was not measured by how fast he spoke, but by how long he could remain silent before answering. In silence, he allowed the truth to rise, like water settling until it became clear enough to see the bottom. Patience under pressure is this same art, to hold your ground while the world demands haste, to breathe while others rush, to listen while others speak. From that stillness, you respond not with noise, but with clarity. And in that clarity, the true message, whether from life, from spirit, or from the Lord, finds its channel. Deep within every human being, there is a place untouched by noise, a still cave that no distraction can enter, a quiet room where time slows down. The monks of Shaolin often spoke of this place as the inner mountain. Just as an actual mountain stands unmoved through storms, the inner mountain remains steady through the winds of thought, emotion, and fear. Most people never visit this cave within themselves. They live on the surface, chasing noise, chasing movement. But when you turn inward and walk into that silence, something shifts. Prophecy does not come like a voice shouting commands. It comes as presence, a weight in the air, a certainty without words. The training of the monks was built around this truth. Hours of meditation were not escape, they were return to that sanctuary within, where nothing external could disturb them. Even when their bodies endured pain, even when the world around them was restless, the mountain inside stayed still. That stillness became their teacher. For you, this inner sanctuary is not hidden in temples or high peaks. It is already within your breath, behind your thoughts, beneath your worries. To cultivate it is to give yourself moments each day where nothing is demanded. No battle to fight, no mask to wear. Just presence. The ancients said the heart is like a lamp. If the flame flickers wildly, the light cannot guide. But if the flame is steady, even the darkest path becomes clear. The inner cave is where the flame steadies. It is your first task, because without it, every other discipline crumbles. But with it, even silence begins to speak. And in that quiet presence, you hear more than words, you hear truth. The greatest strength is often invisible. Real mastery does not announce itself with noise or demand recognition. It weaves itself quietly into the way you walk, the way you breathe, the way you choose when no one is watching. In this way, mastery folds into the everyday, becoming less of a performance and more of a presence. Shaolin monks knew this truth well. Their lives were not filled with dramatic displays, but with repetition, thousands of movements practiced in silence, countless hours of meditation that no one ever saw. To the outside world, it might appear as routine, but within that still rhythm, something powerful was being formed. Discipline was carved into their bones, patience etched into their breath. Spiritual growth follows the same law. Maturity does not arrive in sudden flashes of brilliance. It grows quietly, like roots beneath the soil, unseen yet essential. Every moment of restraint, every act of kindness unspoken, every pause to listen instead of react. These are the silent repetitions that build a strong spirit. The prophetic voice rarely comes like thunder shaking the earth. More often, it arrives like a whisper carried on the wind. To hear it, one must be still enough, quiet enough, present enough to notice. Those who are always chasing noise, always seeking spectacle, will miss it. But those who cultivate silence within will recognize the subtle nudge, the quiet pull that guides them toward truth. Real mastery is this: silent, steady, unseen by most. Not because it hides, but because it does not need to shout. It lives in the small details of daily life, and in those details, it shapes the whole. The whisper becomes the compass, and the quiet path becomes the way. The breath is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. It moves quietly, yet it shapes everything. When the breath is restless, the mind scatters. When the breath steadies, thought slows, and the heart grows clear. This is why the monks gave so much attention to the rhythm of inhaling and exhaling. It is the anchor that keeps the mind from drifting away. The body, too, holds its role. It is not a cage for the spirit, but its ground, the soil in which spirit can root itself. A tired, neglected body clouds the mind. A disciplined body trained with care and respect becomes a vessel through which strength and clarity can flow. Mind, body, and spirit are not separate. They move as one, like three strings tuned to the same note. This trinity is more than balance. It is a map. With breath as anchor, body as ground, and spirit as guide, you become able to receive messages that lie beyond ordinary thought. They do not come in confusion or haste. They come when the whole being is aligned, when nothing within you fights against itself. The monks understood alignment as discipline, to move in harmony with yourself, to cut away excess, to bring the outer life in step with the inner. But alignment alone can harden into control. That is where faith enters. Faith teaches surrender, the release of grasping, the trust that something higher carries you once you have done your part. When alignment and surrender meet, a new strength is born. You are no longer pulled apart by doubt or driven by force. You breathe, you ground, you release, and in that unity, the voice of the divine becomes clear. Not loud, not urgent, but steady, guiding, unmistakable. The shape of your spirit is carved by what you return to each day, not by grand gestures or sudden bursts of effort, but by the quiet repetitions that build your foundation. A pause in the morning before the world rushes in, a step taken with awareness instead of haste, a prayer woven into the rhythm of movement. These are small acts, but they hold immense power. In the monasteries, the monks rose before dawn, not because it was easy, but because it was needed. The still hours of early morning carried a purity that the noise of the day could not touch. By waking in that silence, they trained themselves to meet life with readiness. It was not about discipline for its own sake. It was about preparing the heart to remain steady when challenges arrived. Consistency is the thread that ties discipline to growth. Without it, lessons scatter and fade. With it, even the smallest practice becomes a pillar of strength. When the breath is trained daily, calm becomes natural. When the body is moved with care each morning, presence follows into the day. When the spirit is aligned through prayer or reflection, clarity settles like dew on the grass. Urgency in the spiritual path is often misunderstood. It does not mean rushing, panicking, or forcing. True urgency is steady. It is the knowing that every moment matters, and so no moment is wasted. Like water shaping stone, the steady return to practice carves depth where nothing seemed possible. Each pause, each mindful step, each prayerful act, these are the quiet strokes of the brush painting the canvas of your life. With them, readiness is no longer something you wait for. It becomes who you are. Fear is a shadow that grows larger the more you fight it. The harder you push against it, the more strength you give it. Shaolin training reveals another way not to meet fear with force, but with stillness. In combat, when an opponent rushes forward, the instinct is to tighten, to resist. Yet the monks learned to stand grounded, to let stillness dissolve panic before it could take root. This was not weakness, it was mastery. Fear thrives in movement of the mind, in the racing of thoughts, in the endless what-ifs. But when the mind becomes still, fear loses its fuel. Like smoke without fire, it fades on its own. This is why the greatest fighters were not the most aggressive, but the most composed. Their calm unnerved their opponents, for it showed no entry point for fear to strike. Life delivers uncertainty in the same way combat does, suddenly without warning. The prophetic message, the quiet guidance that reshapes destiny, often arrives in such uncertain spaces. It does not come when you feel safe and secure. It comes when you are trembling at the edge of the unknown. In those moments, stillness is your only path. The ancients taught that a lake reflects the heavens only when its surface is calm. In the same way, your spirit can only reflect divine guidance when it is undisturbed. If you try to conquer fear with noise and force, the waters ripple and distort. But when you grow still, the reflection clears. In stillness, fear is not defeated, it is dissolved. It melts away because it has no root in the present moment. Only presence remains, and in that presence you hear more clearly than ever before. The deepest truths are not spoken first, they are heard first. Mastery and prophecy are not measured by the cleverness of words, but by the openness of the heart that receives them. To stand still, to listen until the noise within you quiets, is the first discipline. Only then can what is received flow through you without distortion. In the old temples, disciples were not taught by endless explanations. They lived beside the master, watching, listening, breathing in his rhythm. Long before they mimicked technique, they absorbed his presence. His silence taught more than his speech. His way of standing, his way of bowing, even the way he drank water carried lessons. To learn the spirit before the form was the path. Without that spirit, every technique was empty. The same is true of prophecy. It is not about speaking with authority, but about listening long enough to catch the tone of the divine. The message may not come as clear sentences. It may come as a stirring in the chest, a sudden clarity in thought, a whisper softer than your own breath. If you rush to speak, you may miss it. But if you wait, if you allow stillness to deepen, the message takes shape on its own. Once received, the task is faithfulness, not to decorate it with pride, not to bend it for convenience, but to carry it as it was given. This is why silence and discipline are essential. They purify the vessel. A disciple, like a prophet, is not a performer. He is a channel. And only through listening first, through receiving fully, can he pass on truth in its living form. There is a kind of spirituality that shines in public, yet fades in silence. It knows the right words, the right gestures, the appearance of devotion, but appearance is not presence. The difference between performing spirituality and living it is subtle, yet it changes everything. One is surface, the other is marrow. Living spirituality is not measured by how loudly one prays or how elegantly one speaks. It is revealed in the smallest, most ordinary moments, in the steadiness of breath when anger tries to rise, in the pause before words are released, in the choices made when no eyes are watching. These are the hidden places where the spirit shows its true shape. The monks understood this deeply. A master could see in an instant whether a disciple was performing or embodying. Performance tries to impress. Embodiment flows naturally, without effort. A bale offered with sincerity carries more weight than 1,000 empty rituals. Silence held with awareness speaks louder than elaborate speeches. The Lord does not seek polished masks. His voice does not pass through the layers of performance. It enters through presence, the stillness of one who breathes with care, who pauses to listen, who chooses with clarity. The divine does not ask for a show, it asks for truth. Ancient teachings remind us, the tree is known not by its flowers, but by its fruit. In the same way, spirituality is known not by its display, but by its living results. Patience, compassion, discipline. To live spirituality is to let each breath, each step, each decision become a vessel for the sacred. And when life itself becomes the prayer, the Lord's voice is no longer distant. It moves quietly through every moment. The path is simple, yet it asks everything. Mastery is not found in noise, but in silence that steadies the heart. Discipline is not chains, but a rhythm that gives freedom. Breath, Body and spirit move together, carrying you closer to the center where clarity lives. The message is not something to chase. It does not come through force. It rises when you are still enough to hear it. When fear knocks, you do not need to fight. You need only return to presence. When guidance comes, you do not decorate it. You live it. That is how the chosen walk, not in spectacle, but in quiet strength. Take these lessons into your daily life, in your pauses, in your steps, in your choices. Let stillness guide you more than impulse. Let presence anchor you more than noise. In this way, the divine message does not remain outside. It becomes your way of being. Thank you for walking this path with us. If these teachings speak to you, support this journey by liking and subscribing to our channel, Shaolin Soulfire. May your days be steady, your spirit clear, and your presence a light for others.